say we living fast, but what they really mean is we're running from something. The streets got stories, cold ones, blurry ones, and out here truth don't sleep. I seen good men lose their way, killers turn to ghosts, injustice take too long to answer the call. But this is 12 gauge honest, where every case pleads true, every file got a heartbeat, and every cold trail still got smoke rising. We talking about living fast, dying young, but fighting to live right now. Cause legends don't fade, they echo through the evidence, through the crime scenes, through every voice that never got heard. This ain't entertainment, it's real life reloaded. Welcome to 12 gauge industry.
All right. Happy Sunday to you all. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for being here. And if you're an individual that continues to come and support the channel, thank you so much for that. It's duly appreciated. Today I wanted to get on here and continue where I started yesterday on these documents that were released by the ISP. I'm going to pick up where I left off and we'll go we'll go from there. So let me get to that part. And I decided to do this in a way that would not be too terribly boring. But as you know, there's only so much that you can do regarding these type of things that are either non-exciting or it starts to really, take some energy off of you. But most people wanted to see the documents discussed, so I thought I would get on here and do that. Once again, I speak on what I know and what I've been told and things like that. And also go back into the case with some of the documentation that we've been shown, the photos that we've been shown, the camera images that we've been shown, to kind of collaborate with some of this evidence that we're seeing in this document drop. This is not by any means trying to figure out whether the individual that is in prison at this point is indeed guilty or not guilty, because as I state multitudes of times, the individual pled. So in going over the documents is merely to show the audience exactly what was being discussed behind the scenes, what was seen as far as discovery was concerned to the lawyers, the defense, and the prosecution. So that is my intent on going over the documents. Nothing more, nothing less. So let's get on with it. This one is page 247, and it talks about the biology analysis note. And yesterday I was going over these and giving people the insight on exactly how these are written, how they are, obviously associated with the later events that are to come, such as the knife sheath that we learned about yesterday in the document. Leading up to the knife sheath, obviously there were receipts, there was biological chain of custody, and then there were the photos that outlined the areas of findings of what they found on the knife sheath. So this is the continued analysis notes that are discussing different things. This one is talking about the nail clippings found in Maddie's, when they took the nail clippings off of Maddie, exactly what they observed: light red brown staining on all the nails. Tested one total stain, 0 minus TOL was positive. Used one swab to swab nail clippings. Item 13.1 is the number that they gave the nail clippings: light red brown, transferred to the swab. Consumptive note: broke 2 nails during swabbing. They repacked it. It was positive, and they retained it. This was the swab of the left fingernail clippings for Madison Mogan of 2022. The whole stain portion of the swab cut to DNA, remaining swab pack in the main envelope. It was retained. There were the right fingernail clippings from Kaylee Gonsalves. The same thing as it states. The glassine paper contained 5 fingernail clippings, red brown staining on all the nails, and orange stain on the interior of largest clipping. Tested one total stain, which was positive for blood. Used one swab to swab the nail clippings, 15.1, which is the number that they gave for this. The light brown transfer to swab. Consumptive note: broke 2 nails during the swabbing, and some stains were remaining. They repacked it. The 0 minus T0L was positive, and it was retained. So it tells you how they were repackaged. The right and left, excuse me, nail clippings from Kaylee and Maddie. And this tells you some more about the nail clippings. A submitted swab from the F2 bedroom floor. How it was swabbed, where it was, the location, how it was tested, how it ended up reacting to the test, or was a positive result for blood. The debris from the F3 bedroom floor, how it was tested, the off-white swab and red-brown debris, tested swab, positive, and the debris was negative. So swab appears consumptive. They repacked it. So the 0-20L is weak for one and positive for the other. It was retained. The right fingernail clippings from Ethan Chapin. 5 fingernail clippings and clipping debris. They also used a red-brown staining on the nails. They tested one total stain, which was positive for blood. Used one swab to swab the nail clippings, item 6.1, which is the number they gave. Light red-brown transfer to the swab, consumptive. They repacked it. 0 minus 2 T0L was positive for blood. Repacked. The right fingernail clippings from Ethan Chapin, as what I just said, was a whole stain portion of swab cut to DNA. Item 7, left fingernail clipping from Ethan Chapin. It was tested with red-brown staining. Tested one total stain. It was positive. Used one swab to swab the nail clippings. Red-brown transfer. Excuse me. To swab the consumptive. They repacked it. It was positive. The swab of the left fingernail clippings from Ethan Chapin. It was retained. And then the right fingernail clippings from Janet Kernodle. And it continues and says that it was positive. It was tested. There was observation of red-brown staining on all the nails. One total stain was positive. Used one swab to swab the nail clippings, item 9.1. So these numbers are the numbers that they give toward these evidence areas. So 9.1 would be the right fingernail clipping from Xana Kernodle and so on. So the screening and analysis controls, and they tell you exactly what they used, the TOL, positive and negative, blue-green, and no reaction. So if it turned blue-green, that meant that it was positive for some kind of blood or protein-like substance. So here we're going to the fingernails, I think. So this was item 6, 11/19/22 and 2022. Here's the case number as we've been seeing. And this was one of the nail clippings. Obviously, this means that it tested positive for blood on this area of the nail clipping. So you ask, how could there be blood under her nails? Think about that a minute. Well, I'm telling you about the area swabbed, item 6.1, which were these little objects right here that were swabbed as well. So if there was blood on her fingernail, that didn't necessarily mean that she was alive at the time that that blood got on those fingernails. Because they also found an unidentified male's DNA under these fingernails as well. So this blood could have gotten under her fingernails as her hand was falling. Any scenarios where her hands were in motion and fell next to a pool of blood, any of that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that she was alive. And here's item 7. So as I told you, item 7 was other clippings. Let me see who item 7 was. I think this is still Maddie's stuff. Okay, 16.1 is Kaylee. Okay, hers were 13.1. So item 7 would have been I can't find it right now, but I'll get back to it. So these are Maddie's nails right here. Either the left hand or the right hand. So I think that this would probably be the other opposite hand. And as you can see, let me check back on StreamYard so that I can tell that y'all can see that. You can see that there is a substantial amount of blood on those fingernails. They were also stained, so this blood would be able to come up and be seen. So this one is positive for blood. And this is the area swabbed outside the nail and the inside of the nail. So I believe that that's where they found the DNA type material. And here's some more fingernails. Item 9. Also, there's blood, as you can tell, on those fingernails. That were positive for blood. Whether the individual was alive during that time is unknown. I haven't reached that portion yet. But also they swabbed the interior portion of the nails. And there's no denying that these nails have blood on the tips of them. Positive for blood, positive for blood, 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 and blood. This is item 10. This is item 12. As you can see, there's a lot of blood on these nails. I believe these were probably Kaylee's, possibly. One of Kaylee's hands or one of the other was one of her hands. I will clarify that by the numbers. And this was the area swabbed. Item 12. And this is item 13. These could be Ethan's. And the same thing corresponds with these. The brownish, red-brown stain would have signaled that there was positiveness for blood on one of these nails. This is item 13.1. I think these are Kaylee's. The other ones were 12.1, so that would have been 10.1. And that one doesn't have a number. So there was, if we start left, that would have been Maddie's. Right, Maddie's. Kaylee's. Kaylee's. Xana's. And one of those was Ethan's. I'll have to go back and look at that. And once again, this was the Forensic Services checkoff list to make sure that they're holding the Stephanie Wilt, the examiner, to a higher standard to make sure that she did do these things or they weren't performed. Obviously, she checked yes or non-applicable. And here is some more forensic DNA report. Let me center that for you. So the evidence description is swab of the front strap of the knife sheath, swab of the edges of the handle portion, swab of edges on the blade portion, swab the stains on the back of the knife sheath, DNA extracts from items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. Reference blood card from Ethan Chapin. Reference blood card from Xana Kernodle. Reference blood card from Madison Mogan. Reference blood card from Kaylee Gonsalves. And there were reference oral swabs from Redacted, reference DNA sample from Redacted, reference DNA sample from Redacted, and DNA extracts from items 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8, 9, 1, 10, 1, 11, 1, 12, 1, 13, 1, 14, 15, 1, 16, 1, 17, 18. So the DNA analysis employing the polymerase chain reaction PCR was used to generate a short tandem repeat STR profile from items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and a portion of the items 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, 18, and 19. So let's read what it says. It says the DNA profile obtained from item 1.1 was determined to be from an unknown male. Ethan Chapin, redacted, 11/2022, and redacted are not the sources of DNA on this item. This DNA profile was entered into the combined DNA index system, CODIS, to be routinely searched against the database. The case agency will be notified in the event of the profile match. The DNA profile obtained from item 1.4 indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which matches that obtained from the known reference sample of Kaylee Gonsalves. Assuming a two-person mixture, the DNA profile is at least 757 septillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Kaylee and an unrelated, randomly selected individual than if it resulted from two unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population. So that's basically saying that it's more likely than it was from Kaylee and an unknown rather than two unknown people. Madison Mogan is a potential contributor to the minor component of this mixture. So part of that mixture that was mixed in with Kaylee's was Maddie's. Assuming a two-person mixture, this DNA profile is at least 48.6 quintillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Madison Mogan and an unrelated randomly selected individual than if it resulted from two unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general pop. Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle redacted or included as contributors to this DNA mixture. So how could that have been a DNA mixture? Well, that means that whether blood was mixed into their blood mixing together as they were swabbing the nails, how the blood got under those nails, whether, they were hugging, touching, all that, could have got their DNA mixed up in that. It's perfectly probable. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.2 indicates a mixture of DNA from three individuals, at least one of which is a male. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.3 indicates a mixture of DNA from at least two individuals, at least one which is a male. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. So it says low-level results, meaning that there wasn't high enough results to even consider this being of relevance towards anything else, or I'm sure that they would have jumped on that. On both of these, it says low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. So there was an unknown male DNA, but was it found anywhere else in the house? No, it wasn't. Did it match anything else in the house that would have consumed this individual as being part of the crime? Obviously not. Items 1.1 and 1.4 were consumed during testing, however. DNA extract remained for these items 1.2 and 1.3, and their DNA extracts were consumed during testing. Item 20 has been returned to the main laboratory evidence vault pending additional DNA analysis. All other items in the empty packaging for items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4 have been returned to the main laboratory evidence vault for return to the submitting agency. And once again, she's declaring under the penalty of perjury that everything that she's saying is true and correct. And this is DNA restitution. This is a request for restitution that may be granted by the court. If you're the subject associated with this report, this is not a bill. We are merely responding that the court assign restitution if they deem it is appropriate. So this could have been applied to Brian once he pleaded the restitution for the DNA testing. As provided in Idaho Code 19-5506, number 7, the Idaho State Police requests restitution from the defendants in the amount of $2,000 in association with laboratory case number. This amount is based upon the number of DNA analysis performed at a cost of $500 each, not to exceed $2,000. The amount requested reflects a portion of the cost incurred to the laboratory during the analysis. So these were the items that were tested, and these are part of the restitution. Please present this restitution request form and a copy of the laboratory report to the court at the time of sentencing. I declare under perjury, pursuant to the law of Idaho, that the foregoing is true and correct. Once again, accountability. And here's some biology analysis notes. This was a bloodstain card labeled Mogan Madison. And this is a blood card from Kayla Gonsalves. So this would have been blood that was either pulled into a little bitty, it looks like a straw, but it sucks up blood into the straw so that you can later test it. Um, and that's what these two are, I believe. And part of it might have been a drop of blood on a blood card that they would later test against other things. The oral swabs from these people, they're redacted. So also they wanted a DNA sample from another person. So these are redacted. A DNA sample from this person, a DNA swab from this person, blood card from Ethan Chapin, and a blood card from Xana Kernodle. And this is the DNA extraction card or a report that they did. There were a total of 6 samples. Master mix made for 8. And these are the numbers that they did, the time that they started, the time that they finished. And these are some more lab reports that tell you exactly the sample name and the identifying numbers and letters that they use whenever they're testing the DNA. I have no clue what any of that means, and I'm not going to even try to fake it. So it just tells you and shows you the procedures and the work that it takes to actually investigate a crime. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and in my belief system, that would show that this was less of a frame and more of a complete investigation than anything else. And here's some more numbers and whatever these mean. And here's more DNA extraction, quantification, and obviously the diagnostic portion of it. I wish I knew what all this stuff meant. Maybe if I ever find somebody who works in a lab or has worked with DNA, they can come on and kind of give us the rundown as to far as what these things are. And these are all redacted, so I don't know what's behind these black sheets. I hope it's not like the other one where, you know, there was a lot of stuff that we couldn't see. More DNA stuff. And if you've ever worked in a lab with DNA or anything, I'm sure you understand what these mean, which I do not. I know these numbers are high right here, and then they kind of dip down into the lower. So maybe that was saying that these are the levels of what these people's DNA or the unknowns were either in the mixtures of the blood or not. Because as you know, you can't tell blood who it belonged to just because of the blood. You can't test that way. You have to test for the DNA in the blood. So all the DNA samples in the swab that they had were for a reason, so that once they tested the DNA, once they tested the blood and got the DNA off of it, then they could tell exactly whose blood was under and around these victims. See, a lot of this has been redacted, which, unless you know what all this stuff means, there's no real reason we need to see it. I could fake it and I could act like I knew what it was talking about, but that's not what I do. I don't believe in trying to talk about something that just to have my pride get in the way and telling you that I don't know what that means. Because a lot of this DNA stuff, if not all of it, I have no clue. And I apologize for that as we scroll through this. I wish I did know exactly what it meant because there's a lot of information. And once again, there's another forensic checklist for this individual, Taylor Machak. And yes, no, this was conducted. No, this was not conducted. Not applicable. And here's a forensic latent print examination report. This is the digital images for comparison captured at 1122 King Road. 4 exemplars bearing the name Ethan Chapin, Dana Carnodal, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. The conclusions: one latent print was examined for comparable ridge detail, so that was probably the latent shoe print. Latent print L5 is a value for comparison. Latent print L5 is a value for multi-model biometric identification system inquiry. Latent prints of value were analyzed and compared to the known exemplars bearing the names Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan J. Chapin. Latent print L5 was entered and searched through MBIS, where no likely candidates were generated. Hence in the table above indicates that the comparison. So Kaylee was included, Ethan, INCE, Xana, INCE, and Madison was included. It says, in the table above indicate that the comparison is inconclusive to the available exemplars. The inclusive result is due to a lack of quantity or quality of detail in the known exemplars. Included in the table above indicate that the latent print is excluded to the exemplars used. No fingerprints were found to be on file for these individuals in order to complete the comparison portion of the examination. It is requested that a quality set of fingerprints be submitted. If a suspect is developed by your agency at a later date, a fingerprint card or appropriate suspect information should be submitted for comparison. There are 3 remaining latent prints captured from 1122 King Road, L1, L2, and L6. Additional report to follow. The disposition of evidence: latent prints were marked and preserved. Digital images used for analysis and our comparison are being retained by ISP Forensic Services. Items 25 through 28 are being retained in the laboratory, pending further comparison. Digital evidence will not be returned to the submitting agency. And once again, this female declares under perjury of law in the state of Idaho that foregoing is true and correct. So there were major crime prints for the victim Ethan Chapin from the autopsy, which is item 25, for exemplars bearing the name Ethan Chapin. The items held were in a clear Ziploc bag, tissue-type paper, 2 sheets, and a black piece of construction-type paper and present in the envelope. There was number 22M, major crime prints from the victim's internodal from the autopsy, and they were also sealed in the same way. There were crime prints from Madison Mogen, number 27, and they were also sealed in the same type way. Major crime prints for victim Kaylee Gonzalez from autopsy, number 28. They were sealed in the same manner. They were taken from the finger. The impressions were present. The clarity was 1, 2, and 3. There was no complex. Medium pressure was done. Areas of higher pressure or excess amido smears. Some surface lines. The medium was amido black. The substrate was plastic slider door in the kitchen of the house facing the kitchen interior. And there was a digital image of this. So this also tells you there are crime scene images 5,840 and 5,841. No points of correspondence to Chapin, but number 9 finger is hard to see. No full palms with fingers recorded. INCE TM 112222. No points of correspondence to Kernodle, but number 6 finger is hard to see Delta. No full palms with fingers recorded. No points of correspondence to Mogen, but number 10 finger is hard to see. No palms with fingers recorded. Recompared Leighton to Mogen. Agree that there is no correspondence above core. Yes, it was verified. And this tells you that the INC, Kernodle, and Chapin, number 4 and number 6, are not clear, need better recording. Kaylee and Maddie were excluded. This is exactly where the tests were ran. Latent prints, and we're still on the fingerprints, and this is where they were ran, and these are the type of tests and the values with the test results and how they were performed. And the same thing with these. And this tells you the same thing we saw a while ago. Madison was excluded. Xana was incisive, I guess. Ethan was the same. And Kaylee was excluded. And maybe this is the handprint right there. That these would have been the fingerprint. This would have been the right little finger, right ring finger, right middle, right index, right thumb, and right palm. And I guess these are the photographs of the actual hands. As you can see, it shows a little bit of what they got. It didn't copy as good as it should have, but here's the photo, I'm sure, of what that card goes to. Left foot. And there is probably the left foot underneath that. The right foot. And the right foot. left thumb, left index. So they do all this for each one of these bodies. I'm sure one day this black will be taken off and we'll be able to see their feet or their hands, which I don't know if I care to see all that. Looks like a lot of this stuff was photocopied and then scanned into a drive, and that's what we're seeing right now. And there's nothing really to see here. It just gives you how they did their fingerprints on these fingerprint cards, and then they would have showed you their hands and their feet. Once again, this is a checklist that Jennifer Ayers did, and she answered yes or no or non-applicable. This is a forensic DNA report. The evidence that they're looking at is item 33, 34, 35, cigarette butt to be used as a secondary reference sample. The cigarette butt to be used as a secondary reference sample. DNA extracts from items 33 and 34. So it makes you wonder where these cigarette butts were found. We did talk about that yesterday. So these are the items that they're going to be focusing on in this next level of paperwork. It says conclusions and interactions. DNA analysis employing the PCR was used to generate an STR profile from a portion of item 33 and 34. The DNA profiles obtained from item 33 and 34 were determined to be from the same male. So the same person smoked the same cigarette butts or the same cigarettes. The DNA profile previously obtained from item 1.4 indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, assuming a two-person mixture is excluded as a contributor of this DNA profile. Further interpretation may be performed upon submission of a known reference sample from any additional developed suspects. The disposition of evidence, all items have been returned to the main laboratory. Evidence vault for return of the submitting agency. Once again, this person declares under the penalty of perjury in Idaho State that what she's saying is true and correct. This is the analysis note regarding those cigarette butts. It tells you contains one orange cigarette butt with no brand, appears smoked, 5mm, two cutting taken off the filter and filter paper. They repacked it. Contains one orange cigarette with no brand, appears smoked, and they did the same thing with the second one. And here is the reference sample. They have Jose Cruz's name there. I don't know who that is, but obviously that is the individual's name that the cigarette belongs to. They tried to redact it right here, but they missed it right there. So cigarette butt to be used as a secondary reference for Jose Cruz. So Mr. Cruz might have been a suspect at the very beginning. And this is the DNA stuff again. Because if you remember, there was two people that were voluntary that did give their DNA voluntarily. That would have been the buccal swabs. And in this one, they had to gather the cigarette to test it because he refused to do a buccal swab. So these might be photos of the cigarettes. I don't know. More DNA stuff. There's another review checkoff list from Catherine Deese. I'm not going over this stuff because I've been going over it every time that I do it. So if you've been watching this at all, you understand what these forms are and what they're about. This is the evidence description that they're going to be looking at. Item 3, 4, 6.1, 7.1, 9.1, 10.1, 12.1, 13.1, 15.1, 16.1, 20, 19, and these other numbers. These entail the swab from the F2 bedroom floor, swab and debris from the F3 bedroom floor. We did find out that the debris did tested negative for anything. The fingernail clippings did test positive for all the four, but some of them were on the left hand, some of them were on the right hand. So this is basically a rundown. It said the DNA profile obtained from item 3 matches that obtained from the known reference sample of Xanacronodal. The DNA profile is at least 12.5 septillion times more likely to be seen if Xanacronodal is the source than if unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population is the source. So that's telling you that's quite a bit that this is Xana's DNA rather than some random person. The DNA profile obtained from item 6.1 indicates a mixture of DNA. Xanacronodal is a potential contributor to this DNA mixture, assuming a two-person mixture, and that Ethan Chapin is a contributor. This DNA profile is at least 19.4 septillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Ethan and Xana than it resulted from Ethan and an unrelated individual randomly selected from the general population. So that DNA mixture would have been from Xana and Ethan. Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, item 11 and 14, and they redacted all that. They are included as being a contributor to this DNA mixture. So those items right there, 11 and 14, were not Maddie or Kaylee's DNA. The DNA profile obtained from 7.1 is consistent with the obtained from known reference sample of Ethan Chapin. The DNA profile obtained from a mixture from item 9.1 indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which is consistent with having come from Xanacronodal. Ethan is a potential contributor to the minor component of this mixture. Assuming two-person mixture, the Xanacronodal is a contributor. This DNA profile is at least 6,150 times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Xana and Ethan than if it resulted from Xana and an unrelated person. Redacted are included as being contributor to this DNA source. So maybe that dude, what was his name? Jose Cruz? Let me go back up here. I need to remember that name. Gosh, it's way up here. I'm sorry about this, guys. But I wanna be able to get that name right. Jose Cruz. So Jose Cruz could have been one of the mixtures that they tested, or one of the DNA samples that they tested against this mixture, and they found out that it was more likely than Xana and Ethan's DNA mixture than Jose's and Xana's, or Jose's and Ethan's. So do you see how they do look to eliminate suspects rather than implicate? And I tell people that all the time, and they refuse to believe it. You know, they really do. They refuse to believe that. I got told that today that people are not in class when they come to my lives or whatever, which is okay that people think that way. I don't understand why there's a need for such anger and hatred towards certain things that I had nothing to do with. You know what I mean? But oh well. I'm still doing this, right? So these are lab reports, obviously, for the DNA that was tested and all these things that we've been talking about. Like I said, I'm not slowing down to show you because there's not really anything irrelevant that we or that I know about. I mean, if you look at these and you understand these, email me or send me a message in Discord and let me know. You know, I did have a contributor that took me up on my offer for the QR code. And I'm going to put their QR code right now. And this QR code is for feedmore.com. It is a food bank in Virginia. And if you want to donate to this food bank, feel free. This individual was kind enough to send me this in Discord. And I went ahead and made good on my statement, you know, that I am going to put stuff up there during the holidays so that people can contribute if they wish to. There is a lot of DNA paperwork here. I'm probably going to do an hour on these as much as I can because yesterday I did 2 hours and that was quite a bit. Like I said, this is a lot of DNA reports, and I wish I knew exactly what it meant because I would be speaking on it for sure. And we're only on page 511 of 2356. So there's a lot to be discussed. But due to my day job and other family obligations and friendships and stuff like that, I'm unable to do more than an hour at a time sometimes. You know what I mean? I would like to be able to sit here for hours and hours and hours and be able to go over this with you, but I don't have the resolve in me to do it because every moment that I spend doing this, I'm neglecting something that is really needed to be done. You know, my off YouTube life. So these are more DNA reports. We're going to get to the end of them, I'm sure, here in a second. So all these numbers and all this stuff were manipulated to point at one person, people think. They were able to manipulate all this to point at one person. That's a lot of work. Look at all this work that's been done just on the people that they know about. All the money that cost to get these DNA samples done. It'd take a lot of work to manipulate something to frame somebody. And they're at the checkoff list once again. And here we go with another paper. We talked about this yesterday. So item 23, 24, 29, 29.1, 29.2, 29.3, 30, 31, 31.1, 31.2. The swab from the above stairwell, the banister, outside the south kitchen window, the swab of the face mark, the swab of the hand mark, the swab of the finger mark, the stain on the bottom of the handrail, the stains on the half wall, the stain on the edge of the half wall, and the stain on the top of the half wall. Results from presumptive chemical tests performed on items 23 and 24 indicated the presence of blood. So which were 23 and 24 were the swab above the stairwell and above the upper floor banister. So item 29.1, 29.2, 29.3, 30, 31.1 were examined only for the purpose of sampling for DNA analysis. Item 31.2 was not examined. So once again, here's the declaration. And these are the biology notes. Whenever the evidence that they found blood, item 21, the blood swab on the above stairwell, it tested positive for blood. Hole stain position cut to DNA. Remaining swab repacked it. It was positive for blood. Evidence tape, how it was formed. This was the swab from the upper floor banister. The same thing. Submitted swab from the outside of the south kitchen window. It looks like, I don't see what it says down here. No, it doesn't show any presence of blood. Then there was a swab of the hand marks, how it was packaged, what was swabbed, and no results from that. Submitted swab of the finger mark, the whole swab cut to DNA, remaining swab was repackaged. Yes, it was retained. Submitted swab of the stain on the bottom of the handrail, and this was contingent, one plastic cap, gray and yellow swab with staining concentrated on tip. The whole stain portion cut to DNA, 3/4 of swab remaining swab repackaged. So one thing you have to understand is they didn't use all this evidence in case they need to go retest something. So if they didn't get it right, or something is later found out that it wasn't tested correctly, they could either go retest it and still have what they need to redo the test. They didn't use all the swab and throw it away. The swab of the stain on the edge of the half wall, this one did. It doesn't say that it was positive for blood. The stain on the top of the half wall, no exam. And it looks like there was blue-green and no reaction as the test. And here's the checklist once again. What she did, what she didn't do. And that is that. And we're getting to the hour mark, and we will stop on page 603. So 603 is where we will stop. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation. It does give you a little more clarity towards the items of evidence that were found and were tested and were sent to different individuals for analysis. We saw the chain of custody yesterday. We saw a lot of different variations as to how these things were done. It's a very, very tedious process as it is reading it. So imagine doing it. I will be back sometime this week to finish another portion. Please set your notifications to on. Subscribe if you enjoy what I do. And hit the like button if you enjoy the presentation, not so necessarily myself. So once again, Feed More is the QR code on the left-hand side of the screen. It is a food bank in Virginia that could use your help, whatever you can donate. And if you can't, that's perfectly fine. Throughout the holiday weeks or months, I'm going to be posting different things. As this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and there is the QR code for that. If you wanna donate to breast cancer awareness. And this one, I believe, is the Heart Association. So you pick any of those that I put up there and donate if you will, or not. It's not mandatory. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Y'all have a wonderful Sunday and try to get some rest due to this time change thing. Like I always say, be safe out there and always watch your six. Maestro, cue that music.